Hi, I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackYou.com, and today I'm going to show you how to change the engine coolant to a product like engine ice. And this would work even if you were just replacing the antifreeze on a 2018 Suzuki GSXR 1000R. Okay, so the reason I'm doing this is this bike is only going to be ridden on the racetrack. We are heading to the track, well actually tomorrow. I picked the bike up this morning and well, there you have it. In order for me to ride this on the track with Sportbike Track Time in the advanced class, I have to replace the stock coolant, the green stuff, with an approved product like engine ice. What you don't want to do is get green antifreeze all over the racetrack because it's really slippery and it's super hard to clean. You get green antifreeze on the racetrack, you're guaranteed to lose at least 6 friends that day at the track. They will hate you because the track will be shut down. It takes a long time to clean up. So with this project bike, I'm going to show you how to drain it and replace it. We're going to start with the overflow bottle. The best way to do this is to just remove it from the bike. Drain it, rinse it out, the whole nine, okay? Super easy to remove. Notice I already have my drain pan down here. Make sure you dispose of all this stuff properly. Toxic, you know how it is. Make sure you're taking the necessary precautions. Emptied it into the drain pan. Now we'll just go ahead and pull the hose off the bottom. And I'm going to rinse this out. Even the water you use to rinse, technically, needs to be disposed of properly, okay? You can't just dump that down the drain. You know, I didn't say this in the beginning, but I'm going to say it now because I really believe this is just a pure common sense thing, so this is probably, doesn't even need to be said, but if the motor's hot, no, you don't do this. You wait till the motor is totally cold because the system is pressurized when it's at or anywhere near operating temperature, so don't touch it when it's hot. Obviously, this motor is totally cooled off. I've heat cycled it twice today earlier. I'm going to pull the radiator cap so it's loose. You need to be able to have air entering the top of the radiator when you're draining this to allow the fluid to drain out. I'm going to go over to the other side. It's really inevitable that you're going to make some type of a mess when doing this, okay? It's water soluble, it's easy to clean up. You don't have to worry about antifreeze damaging paint. Okay, I want to find a low point on the system. Oftentimes, you know, in the water pump area, you'll find a drain bolt. You can usually identify that. There'll be like a copper washer or something behind it. I don't see that. I've looked around a bit on the bike, and honestly, I need to get this project rolling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the hose at the lower portion of the water pump, and this does look to be certainly a low point on the system. So. And expect coolant to be coming out of here, actively coming out. So be ready with your drain pan. Just try to position the hose in such a way that you're able to capture the coolant. Okay, now that we've drained most of the system, I want you to understand that there is going to be some coolant left in different places in the bike. And this is where you need to decide how you want to rinse it out, okay? The right way is, remember, you need to capture everything that comes out of here because this has to be disposed of properly. Stuff's toxic, you can't drink it, you can't dump it on the grass, you need to take it somewhere to get rid of it. So that means even the stuff that you rinse, you really need to capture and store in an approved container until you take care of it. I'm not going to show the rinse part on here. You can kind of do what's right for you. It's simple stuff, but you need to do it enough that you get all and or the overwhelming majority of the coolant out of the system. Oftentimes what I will do is, see, like up here, there is your thermostat there. You know, this hose here, I'm gonna pull and drain this hose because, yeah, you know what, this one's gonna hold, there's probably some coolant residue somewhere up in this area, so I'll probably pull, drain that a little bit, just to do everything I can to make sure that I've got as much of the coolant out of the bike as humanly possible. And rinsing water through that, you just can dump it right here in the top of the cap, maybe take this hose off, let it run through, so on and so forth, is gonna help you get there. All right, and you can see I've got it all rinsed out. It's all done. Like I said, the coolant, the old coolant, it's in an approved container. We're gonna dispose of that stuff properly. I encourage you to do exactly the same. Now we're gonna put the overflow jug back on the motorcycle. And we'll get to this is the critical stage right here. This is where we're gonna refill and burp the system, okay? And I've not done that on this bike yet, but I've got a couple little strategies that I've used over the years that have been pretty effective. And we're just gonna do, you know, just that, the same stuff that I've always done. And my expectations are it'll work well on this bike as it has the others that I've serviced in the past. And I think you'll find some of these tips pretty useful too. Really pretty simple, basic stuff at the end of the day, but still very effective. And looking at this process now, I think it becomes pretty clear pretty quickly. You know, doing this at the racetrack, man, that is not easy, is it? It's not gonna be a ton of fun, okay, trying to get through all this while you're at the track. So I'm really happy that I had the opportunity to pick the bike up this morning so I could spend the day Thursday, at least part of the day, getting this motorcycle ready to roll. Okay, now radiator cap off. You can see based on this location, funnel is a requirement for sure. I have 2 containers of engine ice. Typically, and this is already diluted, okay, you don't want to mix any more water with this. Typically, 1 container will do the bike. Myself, I always grab 2, so that way I have a little extra, just in case something happens, because it is usually very close, and if you spill or have an issue, your project's on hold, and that's not fun. You don't want to dilute it either. All right, get the funnel in there. And remember, the capacity of these systems is not huge, so don't go just dumping the whole jug in. Take your time. Okay, right out of the gate, I was able to get probably about 3/4 of a jug into the system. Now, what I like to do is, okay, and there's no water in that one yet. So obviously it's bled down a little bit, but what I like to do is squeeze the hoses. It's usually most effective, like right here in the lowest point. And if you listen, you do this, it will actually help to pump the air right out of the system before you ever start the bike, okay? And it's gonna give you a huge head start on burping the system. Okay, I'm gonna add a little more now. And we're gonna continue doing what I was doing. Now I can see this hose. Definitely have water here now. And I'm literally right now watching the level go up and down, and the down is lower than it was when I first started. Okay, I'm going to go over to the other side, do those 2 hoses again. Make sure all your hose clamps are tight. Anything you took apart, obviously you want to double, triple check that, make sure it's good. Let's come back over here. Okay, we can add just a little bit, but it's realistically the level's right about here right now. I'd love to act like I wasn't making a mess, but yeah, it snuck up on me a couple of times, and that's pretty normal. Just a little bit left for the overflow bottle. It's going to depend on how this bike burps in the end. If it, after running it, burps and needs more, you're going to need to tap into that second jug. It's really, really close right now as to whether or not one jug would in fact be enough. So I would have to say with this bike, and even most, man, you know, especially if it's a liter bike, just buy two. That way you're not going to be jammed up if you get a little messier than I was. And I mean, I didn't really spill a lot, but in the end, that could be enough that I don't have enough for the coolant overflow bottle after we burp it. Okay, now we're ready to start the bike and run it. You want to let it get up to temp. You want to let the coolant fans come on, and make sure you're keeping an eye on the temp gauge on the bike so you don't put yourself into a situation where if you have a big air pocket and it starts cooking, you need to be here to shut the motorcycle off. Okay, now let's talk about that whole process right there. I want to start off, I want to show you, here's the overflow jug. If you remember correctly, that was empty when I put it on. Right now it's up to here, okay? What that means is the amount of coolant that I had in the bike was such that as it expanded under pressure, okay, a little bit, and this is what the overflow jug is there for, a little bit blew into the overflow jug, and that's really what I like to see. That means in the radiator right now, I'm cash money. I don't even need to open that up and take a look at it. I will look at it tomorrow once everything's cooled back off, and I'll fill the jug to the cold mark, and that's really where you want to work from. But based on what I see here, I know I'm full in the radiator as I've got some now into that overflow jug. It's also important to note that when you first start the bike and you let it run for the first couple minutes, you need to identify where the thermostat's at. On this motorcycle, it's back here. When it's running for the first few minutes, the hoses on the left side of the bike, they were immediately hot. Thermostat's not open yet. Once the thermostat opened, you could clearly tell that the temperature of this hose was very close to that of the other two on the other side. Okay, and that's important. That tells you right now that you've got good coolant flow. From there, just continue to run the motor. This bike, the fans look like they turned on right around maybe 219 or 220. When they turned on, and Steve will show a little clip of this, you'll see the temperature start to drop. Okay, and that's a good sign. You want to see the fans be able to control the coolant temperature. That tells you you've got good coolant flow, and the fans are also effective. I let the fans, I think, turn on, I don't know, maybe 3 different times. Double checked the temperature of the hoses, saw that I had some coolant now in the overflow jug, and that is where I stop the process. From here, I'm going to let the bike cool down completely. Tomorrow morning, I will pull the cap, see where the levels are at cold. Odds are all I'm going to do is just put a tickle in that overflow jug, and we'll be good to go. I'm going to double check every hose clamp on the bike. This is a brand new bike. I want to make sure that I'm not going to have any problems with that, of course. When I get to the racetrack and ride, you are able to see the overflow jug through a cutout in the inner closeout panel on this side fairing. Okay, I'll take a little look and see where that at, and obviously monitor the temperatures operating on the racetrack to ensure that I'm in range. This process is going to look a little different for every bike out there, okay? This is a reasonably decent guideline with a couple of good tips to help you do this on your own. In terms of capacity, with this Gixxer 1000R, I'm good to go. The one jug is gonna be plenty. I still kind of advocate for having two. Something happens and you spill it all over and you're in the middle of trying to get this thing ready for the track, that's a bummer. So having a little extra is never a bad thing. I'm Brian Van, sportbiketrackgear.com.